Unmute. And we're streaming. Excellent. And your video is doing a funny thing again. Just give me 1 second. Oh. Right. Okay. Graphic design is my passion. Excellent. So, okay. So we're having a really fun stream about British fascists this time. So, we're discussing a variety of fascists.
Yeah, all the different fascists are welcome.
Okay. Yep. It's got a cute picture of sheep, so that's lovely.
Yeah,
it's literally my favorite thing about that entire article.
Yeah.
Okay, so it starts with it's called "The Roots of Organic Farming Lie in Fascism" by John Toohey from 2018.
Toohey.
Toohey. I don't know. Okay. It says in 1927, Henry Williamson published Tarka the Otter, which I remember watching with my grandmother.
Oh,
like
really?
another childhood memory, kind of ruined.
I've never even heard of this book. What's it about?
Oh, I've never read the book. I saw the movie. It's basically sort of like nature clips, but like sort of woven together as a story. They've got the trailer on YouTube. Wait a second.
Yeah, I see it.
Oh, Tarka the Otter. There, I have it. Oh, come on. I skipped over the ads for a reason.
Now you're getting added. Somebody needs to find an ad blocker.
The world-famous novel, Tarka the Otter, is a hauntingly beautiful, sometimes savage story about the joyful water life of an otter, one of the most secretive yet lovable of God's creatures. Now, this true-to-life adventure comes to the screen with a cast of irrepressible wild beings and some human beings, too. Man, who hunts for sport with bloodthirsty hounds, is the relentless enemy of Tarka the Otter and his much persecuted tribe. The camera's eye puts you right into the intimate world of Tarka and his friends, which is full of surprises. Because unlike tame human actors, they stubbornly refuse to follow scripts. This is young Tarka's first meeting with his bride-to-be, White Tip, and it's love at first sight. But alas, on this occasion, Tarka's romance is thwarted by a bigger and much stronger rival. Tarka's world is full of eccentric personalities. You'll meet Old Nog, the wise old heron, Eldritch, the great night hunter, and many other fascinating characters. You'll explore Owlery Holt, the hollow tree where Tarka was born, and where Eldritch is raising a family in the penthouse above. It's a sort of rustic, high-rise condominium. This incredible film, Tarka the Otter, narrated by Peter Ustinov, with music composed by David Fanshawe. It's a story filled with suspense, which reaches a peak of excitement with the chase. Tally-ho! Tarka's running battle with the hunters and with ferocious hounds led by the fearsome Deadlock is one of the most thrilling wildlife sequences ever filmed. Tarka the Otter, a unique experience that will delight the entire family.
Well,
Yep.
yeah.
I,
So nature documentary.
it was so cute, and I remember it being as sort of an anti-hunting kind of a story.
uh,
Oh,
well, knowing that the author is a literal Nazi,
yeah,
I think that's probably not the case.
yeah. It's probably like the moneyed classes, and money being a very obvious dog whistle for
Yeah, like
people fascists usually don't like.
the the wealthy
Wealthy
invaders
elites, yeah.
coming to disturb the peaceful, like, local tribe of otters. Yeah, yeah. Knowing that the author's a fascist really
Yeah, it,
doesn't
it puts a
enhance
real
it all. But
tinge on everything.
yeah, yeah.
Choco the Otter, the story of an otter living in Torridge River in Devon, UK, recognized as a classic of nature writing, is seldom been out of print. Though Williamson described the creature's world in knowledgeable detail, he's not born or bred in Devon. Like a lot of soldiers who returned from the trenches on the Western Front, he abandoned London and headed to the countryside to recuperate among the quiet villages and patchwork fields. Like a lot of returned soldiers, he also came around to thinking that the British landscape and the people who worked it were worth defending against the corporations, banks, and their political allies who threatened traditional ways of life. And I kind of, he lost me at traditional ways of life, but,
Hmm.
defending people against corporations and banks, I'm totally for that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a lot of the reason that the fascist movement in the 30s
Mm-hmm.
got the momentum that it got,
Yeah.
is because it sort of piggybacked on a legitimate contradiction of
Mm-hmm.
capitalist society,
Yeah.
corporations and banks, and the amount of influence that they get in society.
Yeah.
Um, and then they just sort of say, but those are all run by Jewish people.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, now you're off on a whole Nazi thing.
Mm-hmm. In 1936, he joined the Oswald Mosley British of Union Fascists and became a black shirt, believing that fascism was the only ideology with sensible program for protecting the land. Oh, for God's sake. The argument that fascism was a way to protect the land was persuasive and pervasive. It is a history that continues to resonate at the intersection between labor and politics. Reverberation were felt during the 2016 Brexit referendum and its aftermath.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Wasn't that the whole, Farage standing in front of that poster that looked like, wait a second. Is Farage with one or two?
He's got two, I think. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Huh.
he's standing in front of this poster that looks like exactly, basically like
Yeah.
Nazi
Yeah,
propaganda,
no, that's
basically.
that's clear fascist propaganda.
Yeah.
That's like textbook fascism. Yep. Yep.
But
Yeah, I mean, sure. I guess there are definitely fascists who are definitely pro Brexit. Yeah, that's very true.
yeah.
Yep. Hmm.
The history of the environmental movement in Britain emerges from several strands. Its roots in the extreme far right. Its roots in the extreme right wing are usually ignored. But Williamson belonged to a vocal group who believed organic farming was key to restoring rural Britain's economic stability and future prosperity. Nazis, like the German fascists, had a similar thing. Like, if we're gonna
Hmm.
start a war, we need to like be self-sufficient and all that. So that seems to be a common thread as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of demands for self-sufficiency in Nazism. I find it's a way to deflect from, like, the system extracting from people. They then say that it's a personal responsibility
Yeah.
issue. Like, you should be more responsible and take care of yourself. Um, so there's something about that. Like, a constant sacrifice
Oh, God.
in the
Oh,
name
yeah.
of protecting the way of life that
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
in the process of sacrificing.
Mm.
That's pretty common in most like fascist trends.
Okay. Common ground. It sounds perverse that contemporary organic farming has its origin in fascism, but both the hard left.
Because it
Oh,
doesn't.
yeah. There were just some fascists who also thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But both the hard left and the equating of hard left and hard right in this article really sort of is grinding after a
Very,
while.
and it's very lazy.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
It's very lazy.
Yeah.
But I'll let you finish the paragraph.
Okay. But both the hard left and hard right shared some common ground during the interwar period. Both were in support of the worker against industrial capital, which, not really. Both were suspicious of mechanization in agriculture, maybe, and both
Yeah,
argued
sure.
that power should reside with the collective. Yeah, but who is the collective? Like, that's the actual question here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who gets included in the collective?
Yeah. The next paragraph is also like pretty
Oh, okay.
pretty interesting to me.
Both also freely used the terms like international banking as code for a conspiracy against the working classes. Spotting the difference was difficult. For example, Mosley, the founder of the British Union of Fascists, always insisted he came from the left.
Yeah.
They do that, don't they?
They do that, exactly. So this section was the first one that really irked me about
Yeah.
this whole article, because the comparisons between the left wing and the right wing are so. At this point, they're just cliches. They're just lazy cliches.
Yeah.
They're both in support of the worker against industrial capital. Well, one of them's in support of the worker against industrialism, and one of them's in support of the worker against capitalism. And then even the one that's in support of the worker against industrial it's actually more in support of capital against industrialism. Horizontal organizational structures that are common in industrialism are bad for the extreme division of wealth. In most cases, and usually have to be eroded in order to get back to a type of serfdom that works in fascist societies. Both are suspicious of mechanization in agriculture. I think everyone should be suspicious of automation in agriculture. I think it's a purely like liberal thing that we can just continue to automate and streamline these processes and then write off the externalities like unemployed people in that process or damage to the environment through those processes. In that way, I guess you could equate the two, but that's just more that like even fascists are less damaging to our agricultural like culture than our fascists or than our liberals. Like, that's astonishing. And both argue that power should reside in the collective. That's distinctly just false.
Yeah.
Unless you like redefine collective to mean in a select minority group of people that are chosen by ethnicity.
Yeah.
But that's like
and also like the minority that fascists approve of is usually like very hierarchically structured. So the collective. This is the.
Yeah.
I'm sure they use the word, but it has no meaning to them.
Both freely used terms like international banking. Well, international banking is a thing. Accounts in the Cayman Islands are real.
Yeah.
Swiss bank accounts are like international monetary exchange even is real.
Yeah.
And all of those things are used to leverage wealth for influence in society. To do things like evade taxes, for example.
Yeah.
That's a direct use of international banking in order to diminish the returns that the working classes would get from the wealth generated in a capitalist society. Right?
Also, I mean, like, fascists might use terms like international banking, but Swiss Nazi gold is like you know, it's a thing. They used international banking. They might have talked against it in front of like the people they wanted to, you know, support them, but it
Yeah,
doesn't mean they
exactly.
weren't using it.
Exactly. Like like shell companies are an example of like a banking tool
Yeah.
used leveraged against the working class. So both freely use terms like international banking, but a left-wing critique of international banking is a critique of the process of
Yeah.
banking internationally, and the right-wing use of international banking is Jewish people who own all the money.
Yeah.
They're very distinct and different messages that are being sent here.
Yeah.
And I find the fact that he so lazily just equates the two,
Yeah.
they both say these words, is very disturbing. The differences are at least as important as the similarities are.
Yeah. And spotting the difference was not difficult.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's just, you know, you have to be like fairly lazy to not spot the difference.
Or deliberately
Yeah.
disingenuous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next paragraph. Another shared belief was the national was that British national identity had been founded in the countryside. No figure better represented the ideal of the British character than the farmer, with his physique molded by work, his hands stained with soil, and his leathery face beaten by the weather.
Mm-hmm.
What? Like I can't think of a like, you know, in British cultural history, in like books and movies, and I can't think of a single like farmer figure.
I think it was probably more a thing that happened around the 20s and 30s.
Okay.
Um, and it's very true. Like there's, in especially like in America today, the right wing parties really love the farmer aesthetic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, the idea of old, well worn leather and you know a rustic screwdriver with a wooden handle that's like greased and oiled
Yeah.
from working all the time. Like they do love that imagery. Um, and I think it does play well into that blood and soil like
Oh God, yeah,
theme.
yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know. It's very frustrating because he does touch on very real fascist trends, but then he just sort of, and the left did it too. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
A photo of a farm worker from Henry Williams' 1941 book Life on the Norfolk Farm.
Mm.
I found a couple of these pictures from that book, and it looks really interesting, but knowing who that guy is, I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. By the 1930s, more people lived in cities than rural centers, but the plowman and the shepherd remained emblematic. Staple images from Anglo-Saxon poetry and medieval manuscripts through Victorian photography. It was easy to make the equation from this mix of nostalgia and sentimentality that strengthening the rural economy invigorated the national character and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Through small-scale organic farming, Britain would not only rediscover its cultural origins, but it would become self-sufficient. An earlier generation of socialists, led by writer and textile designer William Morris, had advocated something similar: a return to traditional farming methods as a protection against the destruction of as a protection against the destruction that mechanization threatened to wreak on the agricultural sector.
Mm-hmm.
Morris's critical failure lay in his romanticism. What he proposed was essentially a form of self-improvement for men of property, but there were no direct benefits for the working class in any of his arguments, which makes it useless.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'd like to see more evidence of that claim. I'm not completely familiar with every piece of work by William Morris, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine
I know him like
that.
strictly as a designer.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I would consider him like a writer and textile designer. I would consider him a textile designer who happened to have said some socialist things
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
He's not like on my list of theorists that
Mm-hmm.
every socialist should try and read or research at
Yeah.
some point. Like it's, but I still gotta imagine that like there were no direct benefits for the working class in any of his arguments.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of his arguments had direct benefits for the
Mm-hmm.
working class, unless he wasn't actually a socialist.
Yeah.
It's very hard to like be a socialist in any discernible way
Mm-hmm.
and not accidentally sometimes say something that benefits the working class.
Despite yourself.
Yeah, just like accidentally.
Yeah. But I think he's like up there with oh god, Oscar Wilde. Like it's really cool that he wrote about socialism, but he's not like a theoretician that anyone like needs to
Hmm.
read.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, protecting British rootstock.
Yeah.
Purity is a key word for the was a key word for the organic farming movement. Why can I not read today? Beyond
Hmm.
the idea of produce free from contaminants, organic farming added luster to to that image of the farmer as being one with the soil. From the moment his pair of hands planted a seed, to that when another picked the fruit, produce and process would be untainted.
Hmm.
Apologies. Um, unfortunately, this idea of purity invoked others, eugenics. It is, well, yeah, I guess you could make a direct line between the two.
You can, it's a strained metaphor
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing, but um, yes, it's true that there is a way
Yeah.
to discuss purity of produce in a eugenic way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we get to that further down in the
Oh, yeah,
article.
yeah.
Um,
It is convenient to forget that, but eugenics was once a platform for a number of avowed socialists. H.G. Wells, Marie Stopes, and John Maynard Keynes all advocated eugenics.
Now, I do have to take a couple of issues here.
Mm-hmm.
First, H.G. Wells gets a really bad rep. Um, Obviously, there were a lot of eugenic ideas
Mm-hmm.
that he like presented. A lot of just, I mean, probably not even eugenic, mostly just racist ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then a lot of very, very explicit and deliberate refutations of all of the eugenic programs that one might use.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's quite fair to call him a eugenicist. Maybe just a normal racist. um, and then the second issue I might take is I don't know that I would call John Maynard Keynes all that socialist.
Yeah.
Um, but that's an economic discussion that's
Mm-hmm.
like that's secondary to the issue. He was definitely a eugenicist, so
Mm-hmm.
fair.
Okay. The argument that intellectual, moral, and physical weakness could be bred out sounded, if anything, compassionate to people who believed that the answer to the nation's survival lay with science.
Well, it does.
No.
I don't know that science really gives any credence to eugenicists anymore.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure eugenics is like frowned upon in most scientific communities,
Mm-hmm.
but the future definitely lay with science. um, okay.
Organic farming was an effort to introduce the same concept of purity to agriculture in order to protect Britain's rootstock. The food placed on the English dinner table would be as wholesome as the image of the farmer. Kinship in husbandry. I had never heard of them. I'm really interested now. Williamson was one of the better-known figures from the hard right of the organic farming movement, but the key thinkers were Rolf Gardner, Jorian Jenks, and Gerard Wallop. In 1941, Williamson joined them as a founding member of Kinship of Husbandry, an organization of rural revivalists who believed that organic farming, with its return to traditional methods, would restore the moral, physical, and economic health of a nation. That is a stretch.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, again, there's that work ethic. The idea that the harder you work and the more that you work and the more self-sufficient you are, the happier you'll be or the healthier you'll be. And there's that thing you see in a lot of like outdoors videos where like it's a guy who just got done setting up his tent and chopping a bunch of firewood, and then he takes a really slow, deep breath and just appreciates the sunset.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you're crazy.
Yep.
But for different reasons. I do think that traditional methods of farming, by the way, would probably restore some physical health,
Probably.
just because it's difficult and that's an exercise that you can do.
Yeah.
Like tilling land by hand with a donkey. Yeah, you'll get some muscle. Yeah.
Also, traditional methods of agriculture don't yield as much, so you can't eat as much. So you're probably going to be very, very thin and muscular. So yeah.
Thin, muscular. Your moral health, I guess that depends on your moral education.
You're probably going to be too tired to rob a bank. So, you know.
Yeah, I feel like it's more that if you're doing traditional methods, you're not going to school, so your parents are teaching you more. So maybe it gets into some more like religious or moralistic education than like practical scientific education. Economically, though, for sure, it's going to hurt the nation.
Oh, God, yeah.
100%. Organic farming doesn't produce the yield, so you can't make the exports. You're not going to make the money. At least in capitalist production.
Yeah. Writing in the 1945 manifesto, The Natural Order, H.J. Messingham explained that husbandry was the group's chosen term because, even though it evoked an earlier age of hog-herds, vassals, and reaping the corn with songs and sickles, it is implied that it also implied a loving management, acting towards nature in a family spirit. Loving management seems to be sort of the upper class thing for we should be in charge because we know what's good for you. Not all the members supported fascism. The poet Adrian Bell argued that Nazism was essentially an urban movement, and its platforms on agriculture were misguided, which was the literal only thing that was wrong with the Nazis. Philip Mayray, who would translate Sartre, also believed that purity and self-sufficiency was central to good farming, but rejected right-wing politics.
That sentence right there should have been a red flag to him while he was writing this article. Because it is in itself very clear evidence that you can have a motivation for self-sufficiency and for clean living, is what we'll call it. I don't know that even Philip would have called it like purity.
Yeah.
But these are good farming practices that are not necessarily intrinsically linked with right-wing politics or with eugenics or even racism. Like, none of that is necessary in order to motivate oneself towards self-sufficiency and like clean, organic, holistic agriculture.
Post-war kinship in husbandry's Nazi links proved an embarrassment, but only for the more moderate members. Dorian Jenks went on to join Eve Balfour in establishing the Soil Association in the 1940s, and he continued to use the charity as a vehicle to espouse his extreme right views into the late 1950s. The publication of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, with its expose on the ways pesticides were poisoning the environment, firmly shifted the argument for organic farming away from eugenics and nationalism towards more fundamental issues of public health.
That's the big one, right?
Yeah.
So now we've had this whole article, and we've gone through this whole article to talk about this sort of, I wouldn't even call this a root of organic farming for reasons that we'll get into later, but this sort of fascist motivation for organic farming that we saw for about 20 years in the 1920s and 30s. At least from all the evidence that he's provided so far, it was like in English, and there may have been a similar movement in Germany at the
Yeah.
time, movement of the 20s and 30s into the 40s.
Yeah.
And then in the 60s, so another 20 years after that, a book comes out that expresses in very clear and scientific terms the dangers of pesticides and chemical farming on the environment and public health. But also in the 60s, we see the rise of a field called environmental science, where we measure the impact of all of these things on the environment and shifts in the environment and impacts of the environment on the public at large. And that's when a progressive or even liberal or just general organic movement started again. So I think that him pointing out that this book was written, I don't know why he would even mention this, unless he was anticipating that there would be arguments that, like, well, actually, we found out scientifically that, like, growing organically is just healthier in most cases. And he wanted to say, yeah, I mentioned that, but also all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
But, like, no, this is actually very important because we found out that, like, actually there are scientific environmental reasons why one would want to grow without pesticides, which in our very last episode, we learned were causing long-term, lifelong illnesses in agricultural workers when we learned about the impact that it was having on Colombian flour industries. So we know for a fact that organic farming is healthier. And we know that that discovery shifted the organic growing movement, which is not even the same movement, but shifted discussion about organic farming from eugenics and nationalism toward, hey, actually, this stuff just gives you cancer. I can't imagine why this point is just sort of brushed over as he writes this whole article about 20 years of British fascist history. That's, I can't even express how insignificant it is to the grand scheme of organic agriculture. Like, pesticides haven't even been around for 10% of human history. And this period of history isn't even 10% of the period that we've been using pesticides. So it's like, why are you even, why are you trying to pretend like this is the root of organic farming?
It's kind of like trying to undermine the validity of the field of chemistry because it got started with, like, alchemy.
Yeah,
sort
exactly.
Of,
Well, no, not even, because at least alchemy, there were hundreds of years where people thought they were
that is true.
Yeah. No, it's like,
so basically chemistry is cancelled?
Yeah, chemistry's canceled. For sure. Yeah. It's just mind-boggling. I can't even think of something equivalent to this. Like, oh, man. Yeah. I guess we could read to the end of the article.
Okay.
Before we finish
yelling at it.
Yeah.
The history challenges the assumption that environmentalism and progressive politics are symbiotic, or at least inevitably compatible. It also reminds us of certainties that still resonate today. It also reminds us of uncertainties that still resonate today. There we go. When a working class base of British Labour supported UKIP and Brexit during the 2016 European referendum, we heard echoes of that interwar period when the politics of the left and the right were suddenly difficult to differentiate. Once again, these were arguments from both sides that by breaking free from Europe, Britain would rediscover a more pure sense of identity.
Okay, I'm completely upfront. I'm not an expert on how and when the British Labour Party adopted like a Brexit platform. I remember checking in when the debate was starting and being like, okay, there are two sides here. On the left, we remain. On the right, we leave. Okay, cool. And then I checked in a couple of years later. I'm like, oh, they actually did it. They left. Huh. And then now I'm checking in and I'm seeing things from the Labour Party that are like, yeah, we do have to leave the EU. And I'm like, I don't really know that argument.
Oh,
But
the EU is massively like neoliberal, so there are good like leftist reasons for leaving the EU. So I'm not even arguing with that. But to like put Brexit on the back of working class Labour voters when they were like, I believe like 15% of the Labour Party voted for Brexit. Like the polls differ because obviously you're not always going to catch everyone, and it doesn't map perfectly. So, but by most polls I've seen, it wasn't the Labour Party that pushed Brexit over the edge.
Oh,
like,
yeah, no, that for sure.
Yeah.
Like I'm 100% confident on. Yeah, that was definitely a right-wing initiative. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. Like they were. Yeah.
I think this line right here, this history challenges the assumption that environmentalism and progressive politics are symbiotic. What? How? How? Because Nazis at one point, some British Nazis for a brief period of time also practiced organic farming. That proves that progressive politics are incompatible with environmentalism. What?
Well, not inevitably, because I don't know how it is in Britain, but I know in Germany there are far right groups who like specifically target like rural areas, like they go into like dead and dying villages and like buy the land, buy the farms, and all of that. So like finding a hippie in a village who does like organic honey and some root vegetables, that is not necessarily a lefty. That is like in some parts of the country quite likely somebody who's very fascist.
That's not the argument he's saying. Isn't that every environmentalist will inevitably be progressive? He's saying that the compatibility between a progressive politic and environmentalism isn't inevitable in itself. So, in my mind, I think that if you have progressive politics, it is inevitable that you will pick up an environmentalist platform. Because if you're looking at the most efficient ways to organize society, and you're doing so in this left progressive way, and what he means by progressive is like the social democratic and democratic socialist sort of themes that are going through society right now, you're going to discover that factory farming is not sustainable. You're going to discover that it is a risk to the well-being of society at large. And if you're organizing to promote the well-being of society at large, it is, in my estimation, inevitable that you will pick up some forms of environmentalism.
Yeah.
But the other key word here is symbiotic. For the reasons I just stated, environmentalism and progressivism are distinctly symbiotic. Yes. It's like almost core to progressive politics is some form of environmentalism. It's green energy. The Green New Deal in America only exists within progressive trends of politics. There is no right-wing critique for the Green New Deal. That's not a thing. That might have been a thing in the 1930s in England somewhere, but that's such an insignificant part of like the world or human history that it's insulting for this article to have been written with that thesis.
But you could make the argument that like in the 70s, like under Nixon started the EPA, didn't he? Like there was this sort of like, save the land, save the people of the land, and all like that. There was that movement on the right wing, but it's not today. Like they've been completely. They are very anti-environmentalism these days.
Yeah, and I also want to try and we have to color this with a tint of pragmatism, because Nixon was also obsessed about re-election and maintaining popularity. If Nixon had any type of environmentalism in his actual political program, then he would not have executed Operation Rolling Thunder and napalmed half of South.
Oh shit! Yeah.
So that contradiction there should should be a way of demonstrating that the EPA in Nixon's formulation was a purely political exercise. Imagine if Donald Trump expanded food stamps by 10%. I don't think that you would then say, well, of course, Donald Trump had progressive planks to his program. No, you would say he was a fascist who expanded food stamps to try and placate progressive voters to some
Yeah.
degree. I think that's the similarity to Nixon starting the EPA. It's not, and there may have been some right-wing conservationist like rhetoric in there, and
Yeah.
that rhetoric does still exist. Protecting this land is like, it's very dangerous rhetoric
Yeah.
in general. But that's also not the same as doing what's best for the environment.
Oh no, yeah.
Sometimes the two, like the specific act, like organic farming or only cutting down dead trees for firewood or, you know, things like that, they might overlap, but not necessarily for the same principled reason. But what I wanted to talk about with this article was more the initial, I don't know if you call this a fallacy or just assumption, that he was striking at the root of organic farming movements. The roots of organic farming lie in fascism. No, they don't. Not at all. I thought of 5 examples, and this was off the top of my head the first time I looked at this article. I thought of 5 examples of indigenous people from around the world, different hemispheres. I think I touched every hemisphere. I'm not really sure. Different hemispheres that each had organic farming like policies that we use again today.
Yeah.
But they've been doing it for thousands of years, hundreds if not thousands of years. The first is agroforestry, which is done in California. It was practiced by the indigenous people there before they were genocided by the U.S. later, but that's a different subject. And this is a practice of planting your crops or ensuring that crops are planted in and amongst trees, or planting trees in and amongst your crops. And there are a bunch of agricultural benefits to that we don't have to get into, but this was practiced, you know, probably from what I could tell, at least 800 years before the discovery of California by Europeans. Crop rotation in Mexico, that goes back to the Aztecs and the Mayans.
Agroforestry. I saw, like, I think this summer I saw a thing on TV about this new thing called agroforestry. And I like literally that never brought up the fact that it's like hundreds of years old by indigenous people in California. It was like this whole new wave of thing. I like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, crop rotation. You may remember, I think in our first ever episode, I talked about soil rotation as an alternative gardening measure.
Yeah.
Crop rotation is the precursor to that. It's the idea that you don't grow the same piece of produce on the same piece of land over and over. That was being practiced for hundreds of years, which is why you don't ever hear of the Great Aztec Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
That was like a purely factory farming, like American thing. Intercropping in India, we sort of discussed this when we discussed like symbiotic planting, planting multiple different varieties of agriculture in the same plot. That gives you all the benefits of biodiversity and soil nutrient density. That was practiced in India 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe longer than that. Polyculture in Africa, same basic concept. Promoting biodiversity and really trying to replicate the natural environment within your agricultural project. You can look at that in Kenya going back hundreds of years. And then rainwater harvesting, obviously, is one of the organic farming movement pushes. And that's also a more complicated critique. It's more deep than just well, water comes from the sky and it's free, so put that on your flowers. There's a lot that goes into purifying drinking water that comes out of a tap.
Yeah.
There's a lot of chemical additives. There's chlorine, there's fluoride, and there's a thinking that adding that stuff to your garden could put some unwanted chemicals or increase the concentration of those chemicals in our bodies as well. And there's some validity to that claim.
Okay.
So the idea is that water that is evaporated and then gone to the clouds theoretically would be slightly cleaner for the plants.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't drink it directly because of bacteria content that would be in your harvesting apparatus. But those bacteria would actually be beneficial to plants. That's more organic matter, more nutrients in the soil that can grow from rainwater.
Okay.
Algae naturally grows in rainwater collection buckets. For example, that algae could be food when put into soil for plants. That's been done in India, Africa, South America, Australia, you name it. That's everywhere. But I don't understand how you can cite, this author from 1927 in England is the root of the organic farming movement. Excuse me. Like, I'm pretty sure the Anglo-Saxons would have had organic farming practices as well.
I mean, literally, wasn't literally all farming pre 1850 technically organic?
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah.
Like when was the first pesticide invented? That's a good Google.
Oh.
Okay, never mind. 4,500 years ago. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Apparently they use some form of processed sulfur back in the day.
Okay.
In Sumer. But I don't know. I don't know. Huh.
That is fascinating. Well,
I don't know though. Like, nicotine sulfate being extracted from tobacco leaves doesn't sound like a highly processed chemical synthetic pesticide.
No.
That sounds like a fairly organic process. Natural process, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. DDT. That's the one that I remember being rallied against by organic farmers. Don't put DDT on your plants. That was something that didn't come around until the 1960s.
Oh, actually, DDT was invented in 1939. So that was probably one of the... Yeah.
There were a lot of arsenic-based pesticides early on, too.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to go ahead and just agree off bat that, 1927, this dude wrote a book about an otter, and now there's an organic farming movement. That's bunk to me.
Basically, the article should be named around the time that organic farming came back in Europe. There were, right-wing people and left-wing people who thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, potential right-wing motivations for organic farming. That's more accurate.
That's more snappy than my one.
Yeah, definitely not the roots of organic farming lie in fascism. What? No. Excuse me? No. No. I found some fascists who happened to do organic farming back in the day. That's accurate. Yeah, but I think it's always interesting to learn how different ideologies treat organic growing as an aspect of their practical programs.
Yeah.
I think there is probably something to the idea that fascists really do lean on, like organic growing and their one with nature thing, in order to communicate that ideology.
Yeah.
I think it does probably provide them like a very good looking sort of platform. They're taking care of the land, they get the farmer aesthetic,
Yeah.
and then they can sort of slide in there things like invasive species of plants, and sort of work a right-wing rhetoric into that process.
Yeah.
I don't agree that since there are ideological programs that use organic growing in an unhealthy way,
Yeah.
that there are no valid radical environmentalist movements that also use organic growing in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And of course, naturally, the whole article is actually about Brexit the whole time.
About how poor people are at fault for Brexit. To be fair.
Yeah, it's Labour voters and fascists, and that was it. Those are the only people, and they only did it because Labour voters are also secretly fascist. It's absurd.
Yeah.
It really is. It's an interesting article. It's a fun reading article. At least this one wasn't like so poorly written as the last one.
Yeah. At least he like stuck to words that are actually in the dictionary.
He stuck to words that are in the dictionary. He kept it pretty much down the line, chronological. The same trend of the same 5 or 6 people. He didn't drag it off in 1,000 different directions. It short, sweet, to the point.
Yeah.
Wrong. Yeah, it was a great article, though.
Oh, speaking of last week's articles, I actually bought the Defiant Gardens book that we read about, the gardens in World War I trenches. It's so fascinating. Oh my God, I love this book.
Oh, you got it already?
Yep. Got it off Amazon.
Amazon.
I know. I'm going to be against the war as a counter-revolutionary, but it's got like these really cool like. There's also like it's like the focus of the book are like the gardens in World War I trenches in the ghettos during Nazi times and in the Japanese and German camps in the U.S. But also in the like in the last chapter, they've also got like pictures. Here is one from like a garden of Russian and Ethiopian immigrants in Haifa, Israel, or here's one Italian prisoner of war in Australia, and it's just so fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to be talking a lot about this book. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that book looked interesting. Just in the little brief article or whatever that we read about it, and the website that we went to. I didn't think to go buy it.
I overreacted slightly.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it's a good book. It's a good book.
Totally.
What can you do? I too buy books that interest me from time to time. Like Tarka the Otter. Maybe I should go read this fascist book. No?
I'm still so sad about that. I have these really cute memories of like sitting with my grandma on the couch on a Saturday afternoon watching Tarka the Otter. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, written by a fascist. A genuine black shirt British party fascist.
Oh my God, I'm starting to like really kind of have to worry about myself because we looked into biodynamics and I had that biodynamic honey and now like Tarka the Otter. I think I might,
Well, listen. Look, I'm just going to be honest. You're in Germany.
Chances are good. Oh.
Yeah. So speaking of European fascists, I love soccer, and obviously I'm an American. So when I watch like international
Yeah.
football, I can't watch the American team
Hmm.
because we're terrible. And we're not just like when you listen to pundits, they'll call it
Hmm.
like, oh, it seems like particularly average. No, understand that they're like being generous to
Hmm.
like try not to invalidate the American market of buyers.
Hmm.
We're bad, real bad. Um, so I was watching the English team
Uh-huh.
because they're like pretty good right now,
Uh-huh.
and they were playing a game in Belarus in which a group of at least 300 Belarusian Nazis came to like racially harass all of
Yeah.
the black players.
Or was it Bulgaria? I thought it was
Uh,
Bulgaria.
was it Bulgaria? I don't remember.
Okay.
One of the racist European countries that started with a B.
Uh,
Was it? What did I say? Belarus?
I think so, yeah. Wait a second.
Uh, yeah, no, it was Bulgaria.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and they made their head of the FA resign.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, but they made him resign, and the
Hmm.
fine that they're gonna get for all of the fascism and
Uh-huh.
racism that was going on in the stadium, um, $32,000.
Okay. I mean, they probably made millions from that game. Just like
It was
in TV
ridiculous.
money and ads and all of that. So,
Yeah, yeah, that was
Ah.
like a significant portion of their gross domestic product was
Mm.
that one game. Yeah, and they okay, $30,000 fine. And
Oh.
what's fascinating to me is they also fined the English team.
But I believe they're really good at like being sort of both sidesy and like finding
Hmm.
both sides for that. But they found an actual reason for that.
Well,
Well, they came
like
up with a reason. I'm not saying like it was fair or anything.
yeah, like the reason that they found was that the English team didn't bring quite enough stewards.
That was the one. Oh my god, yeah.
That's what they're finding them for. And like,
Hmm.
okay, guys,
But they could have
like
said
what
that beforehand, surely. I mean, they could have found,
and like
you know.
what are we serious right now? Are we serious right now? We didn't bring enough stewards. Like so,
Yeah.
I'm not a big
Also,
fan of doing the both sides or like
hmm,
we found this one group of people doing something awful,
yeah.
but what were the other people also doing? Like let's find
No, yeah,
something to
yeah.
blame them
Hmm.
for as well. Like
They're doing that strange thing where they like have to be like they can't appear to be on anyone's side. So like if anything
I feel
happens, they
like
just find
it would
both.
be safer to be on the side of the people who are not racist.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like if I'm choosing between
Hmm.
Nazi salutes, people not doing Nazi salutes,
You should have
I
a
feel like
preference.
you should have a very clear and distinct preference, and
Hmm.
the way you enforce rules in that instance should probably reflect that preference.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's fairly safe to like deliberately go
Hmm.
easy on England here because they were the victims of like very grotesque
Yeah,
racist
yeah. And also,
abuses. Like
I don't even know that like bringing stewards is a thing because I work in a football stadium
oh
and I
really?
don't think the visiting team ever brings stewards.
No, for international games you do.
Oh, okay, okay,
Um,
okay. So that's the difference.
because the assumption is, I guess,
Oh, so they
that
speak the
your
language and
fans of
everything.
your team,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly, won't speak the
Yeah.
language. Um, and you're supposed to bring, I think it's like 2 stewards
Uh
for
huh.
every 1,000 fans or 500
Okay.
fans. Um, and it's like, okay, maybe they were a couple of stewards short,
Mm.
but like, are we serious right now?
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, that's a frustrating situation.
Hmm.
But everybody who like every soccer pundit in the world, everyone on the planet has had to have the conversation about it. And I couldn't help bringing it up.
Yeah.
Terrible,
It's awful. Yeah.
terrible. But there were like the thing that gets me is there were like
Hmm.
300 or so.
Yeah.
Like that's wild.
Yeah.
It shouldn't constantly surprise me, but it always does.
Yeah. And like, but also like, I know, like I shouldn't be disappointed with them anymore. But all the teams and all the federations, they're really working hard to like evict racist fans from the stadiums, and somehow they keep sneaking back in. It's really weird.
It's the idea that like these federations are doing anything to like genuinely try and remove racism from their stands is so laughable to me.
Yeah.
Like, so in this game, for example, they went through the procedure that was established.
Yeah.
And it's basically you stop the game, you ask everyone to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Game, like you ask everyone to stop. And then if you stop a game the third time, like you cancel it. And I don't even know that it's written down that the victors automatically get the victory.
Okay.
Or that the victims get the victory. I don't think that's the rule. I think it goes down as like a no contest, they just pretend it never happened.
Yeah.
I think that's how the rule's written, but I'm not 100% sure.
I couldn't tell you. Like I've got something in the back of my head that just like whoever is ahead at the time just wins. But I'm like that might be a different thing. I don't.
That might be the rule. But to me, it's absurd. Like that rule was invented in 2009, and the first time it was ever enforced was 2015 in Italy. And the team that it was enforced against has done the same thing at almost every game since then. And so it's like, clearly, whatever you say that you're doing doesn't work. You know that it doesn't work because it's so obviously not working because you've been doing it for 10 years and it's never worked.
Yep.
So to make the argument that they're even trying is like, I mean, no, they're not.
No.
They're fining this entire nation $30,000. It's a country, people. Like a small country, maybe.
Yeah.
Still a whole country. Like that's an entire nation.
Yeah.
$30,000. Okay.
Yeah. Also, I mean, they're like a football federation. They should like find them, the thing that those fans actually care about, which is, football points. Like they should they're not allowed to like play in the Euros or participate in competitions. Like that should actually.
The suggestion that I liked the most was okay, you guys have a bunch of racist fans and you can't keep them.
You're not allowed to play with us. There you go.
You can't play.
Yeah.
You can only play friendlies. And you can only play friendlies with nations that like
until you prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, that should be the rule. I agree. I can't believe that a $30,000 fine is even on the table. That's like that's less than the fine like players get for skipping practice. It's insane.
With the amount of money rolling around football, 30,000 is nothing. It's literally nothing.
Sure. Yeah. I guess that's we can officially say we've had our first topic that wasn't gardening or leftism related.
They've got very nice grass, so that's gardening.
That's very true.
Yep.
Well, actually, not always.
No.
Not always. I think this one might have even been on turf. I don't know what their surface is.
I think artificial turf is not allowed in men's games. Like it's allowed in women's games, but it's not allowed in men's games, as far as I know.
I know. So one of the reasons that I was watching the England team, is because I'm a Manchester United fan. We're terrible. So Manchester United played a game in the Europa League a couple of weeks ago, and it was played on turf.
Oh, in the Europa League, they're allowed to play on turf. Oh shit!
The normal stadium, like they had to do some repairs, with solar panels somewhere, so they couldn't use the normal stadium. So they moved them to some sort of field that they found in The Hague, of all places.
Oh,
and they played on turf, and the game belonged in The Hague. It was a violation of my human rights. It was a terrible game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they complained about it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one of the excuses that they tried to use for the fact that they were absolutely awful in the game. They were like, well, we were playing on turf, and the turf wasn't like the ball rolled too quickly on the turf. You're like, okay, guys,
Uh-huh.
you make 450,000 pounds per week.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, talk to me about your AstroTurf. That's fine. Don't mind me. I'll be over here with no cell phone.
Also, didn't the women play like their entire World Cup on turf?
Yeah.
I think the one in
Yep.
Canada, right? Yeah.
The one in Canada. Because Canada's a backward country that the United States just lost to 0-0.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where we're at. They don't even have grass.
I mean, I don't know why I'm laughing. Like, look at Russia. Like, so, no, yeah, stuff happens.
Hey, look, it happens. It happens.
But I like the fact that like the Russian World Cup was so like boring and kind of shit that everyone just pretends it didn't happen. So I'm really happy about that because Germany did terribly. So we're all just gonna pretend that never happened.
Yeah, no, that wasn't. Which one? America wasn't even there. So like genuinely, it didn't happen.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's. We're probably not going to make the next one at this rate.
Oh
either.
no.
Yeah, it's really that bad. Yeah.
But we were so good for a while. They're like sort of to the like early 2010s, weren't you? Like kind of
Yeah. So
the up and coming.
yeah, we were up and coming, and we had a couple of good players. But here's what happened.
Okay.
The U.S. started seeing that people would pay money to watch soccer.
Oh no.
So companies started to invest in our soccer league.
Okay.
And they paid our soccer federation to incentivize players to stay in America to play professionally. So now none of our players are training in Germany and England and like Italy, where the good players are. We're all just playing our terrible soccer alone by ourselves in the corner and then trying to go play international soccer like we're somebody.
Yeah.
So we're getting demolished. Right now we have a good 4 or so players that play anywhere overseas, and they're all between like 18 and 20. So none of them are actually playing for their senior teams. They're like in German academies, and those are like our starters. That's who we've got. We got like, I think we have one person who starts fairly regularly.
Isn't there an American player at Dortmund? I keep hearing about him. Pulisic?
Nope, he left.
Oh, okay.
Nope, he left. He went to England, and now he sits on the bench.
Oh, good. That keeps happening.
Yeah.
I'm still at Manchester United. I'm still so mad at Manchester United for what they did to Bastian Schweinsteiger. But
Oh man.
Okay, good. Glad.
That was one of the worst things that I've ever seen. Like,
it was so heartbreaking watching that. Oh my god.
And then they fired the coach and brought in a new coach who just hated him for no reason.
Yep.
And so they made him play on the youth team.
He won a World Cup and they made him play on the youth team. I was like, oh.
Like 2 years later. Yeah, like 2 years later. He's like 30 years old. Like in his prime. Like, and meanwhile, as he's doing that, as he's making this guy play on the youth team, we didn't have midfielders. Yeah. One of the greatest midfielders in the world, unquestionably, playing on the youth team. And we were playing a guy who goes by the name of Marwan Fellaini.
Oh shit, Fellaini was in midfield.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like our guy. Yeah, Schweinsteiger is just like not even on the bench.
Hanging out with 17-year-olds for some reason.
And like, yeah, that was that one really got on my nerves. Because it was like, because before he came, we had a great defensive-minded midfielder um, named Michael Carrick, and he'd been at the club since he was like younger.
Yeah.
We bought him when he was like a teenager, I want to say. And we'd been panicking as he got to be like 34, 35. Like, oh, what are we going to do to replace him?
Yeah.
In comes one of the best in the world. Like, yay, we got him. Cool. And like he played one season and he scored like a couple of really good goals. And then they just sort of put him on the youth team. Like he wasn't even training with the starting team. That was terrible. Yeah. Hate that. So now I guess this is karma from that. We're suffering right now. We're in 12th.
Oh no.
Yeah, third most valuable team in the world. We're in 12th.
Well, it's early in the season, so who knows?
Yeah. We'll turn it around.
Exactly.
Yep. It's estimated we need to spend £700 million on players before we're even in contention for the top 4.
What?
Yeah, we've had a rough couple years.
Okay.
Things have gotten real bad real fast. Real fast.
Damn, I thought you were gonna say like we need a new midfielder or we need to shore up our defense. Not we need to spend nearly $1 billion.
Yeah, we need 6 new starters and 1 backup minimum before we can even get into the Champions League again.
Damn.
I would say to qualify for the next like 3 or 4 years would be overperforming.
Jesus, that's like a really like how the mighty have fallen story. Jesus Christ.
Oh, it's brutal. And obviously because it's Manchester United. Imagine if the same thing happened to Bayern Munich. Like,
oh God, yeah.
Imagine if they were like finishing 14th.
It would be brutal, yeah.
Yeah. So like, there's no turning on anything related to soccer for me right now.
Yeah.
And it's not. Can you believe how terrible they were?
Yeah.
They lost this game 1-0. They didn't even have a shot on target. It's like, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Where we're at. Okay.
Salt in the wound. Thank you very much.
Yep. I deliberately picked this team when I started watching soccer because I wanted a team that was really good. At least if I'm watching the sport, I want to see the team that's winning.
You want the endorphins. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And I'm not getting those.
And
the teams that are winning are our top 2 rivals. So I can't even like switch teams to the winning team.
Oh no! No, like switching from like United to City. That's just no.
Yeah, or United to Liverpool. Neither one of those. Are like, you can't do either one.
Nope.
So I'm just stuck watching them. This is what it's gonna be. Wow, that was a wonderful digression.
Yes, a lot more fun than fascism. So.
Yeah.
But those sheeps are really cute. No, those sheeps. There is no plural to sheep, is there?
Yeah, no, it's just sheep.
Sheep. Okay. Cute sheep. Terrible article.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of the photography is like pretty good. Even that one fascist dude's picture of the like farm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's like a decent picture.
And I think those structures in the back are just hay, if I'm seeing that correctly. Those are like.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Oh wow.
Like just big piles of hay. Impressive. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Good piles of hay, guys.
Yes.
Yeah,
if they stuck to stacking hay, fascists would be all right.
If we had to go back there, I don't think.
Yeah.
Hay is something that interests me.
Oh.
Because I don't think in any of my formulations for how I would structure like agriculture and
Mm-hmm.
the socialist society, I can't think of a single version of it where hay is a thing. Because I can't think of like a whole field of just like
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna dry out this really tall grass and then cut it all down. Like I don't see how that could be done
Well, you
with
can
like
make hay from wheat. Like you take the
well
grain and then you have the. That is hay, isn't it?
it looks
Oh
like
no,
hay.
that's straw. That's straw. Hay. I
Straw.
think I think hay is actually just like
Yeah.
grasses and things. No, you're right.
Yeah, hay is just like a really tall grass.
Maybe it's
And
just.
then straw is wheat, and then you can also get water reed
Mm-hmm.
is like
Oh yeah.
another material that's like that
Mm.
that they used to use for thatching. I can't think of, but it doesn't really matter which one's which because I can't think of growing any of them in a way that's like socially healthy.
Maybe just in places that are like where you can't get to with like machines or like work them very easily, sort of like on mountainsides and stuff. Because
Yeah,
hey, like
maybe
for feeding animals, that has a
it's
use.
useful.
Yeah,
It's very useful, but it's like also we like have to factory farm to get the quantities of hay that we need.
that's true.
And so like
Mm.
I don't know. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
And also I'm pretty sure that like humans shouldn't eat as much grain as we eat. Um, I'm pretty sure it's
Mm-hmm.
unhealthy. I say that, but like I guess I'm going down from like enriched white flour to like
Mm-hmm.
grain.
Yeah.
So I guess that's an improvement. But I'm going down from enriched white flour to something that's still probably not good for me.
Mm. But good for you is relative.
Theoretically. Yeah, it's all relative. You're right.
Exactly.
It's very true. Yep. I'm only drinking like pure organic milk.
Ooh,
I'm doing a whole
fancy.
food diet.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
like a real food diet. So I try very hard to avoid anything that's been processed in
Mm-hmm.
any way.
Anyway.
And I in any way, yeah.
Ooh,
So like I don't eat like iodized salt. I don't eat. So
wow.
my table salt has to be like sea salt. um, yeah, all of it.
Jesus.
Like I make exceptions for vegetable oil, and that's it
Okay.
because it's like impossible to cook without some
Yeah.
sort of oil.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna pay for like coconut oil
No.
every time I need to like fry an egg.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, everything is like I'm drinking. I don't have one with me, but I'm drinking like shake, like smoothies,
Oh,
making
cool.
vegetable smoothies.
Uh-huh.
First time I've ever done that.
How do you like it?
Um, so I'm almost a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be a weekend on Sunday.
Okay.
Uh, I like it a lot so far.
Oh,
Actually,
brilliant.
I haven't had any sugar. I
Uh-huh.
mean, I mean like fruit sugar.
Yeah.
I haven't had anything with sugar added to it in over
Wow.
a week. Yeah, I'm feeling better already.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you
Yeah.
get the jitters and all that? Because like people say that if you like stop sugar cold turkey, it is actually like sort of your body reacts to that.
Yeah. No, and I didn't stop cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did is last week, because I've known I was going to do the diet for a couple weeks
Mm-hmm.
off. Last week, I bought just like salted caramel chips.
Okay.
My camera won't focus on it; it's cheap. Um, so I would just like ration them
Mm-hmm.
out. So at first I was eating a decent amount,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then not very much, and
Uh-huh.
not very much. And so
So
the
you're
thing that's getting me
tapering.
is like, yeah, tapering down
Mm-hmm.
off of like candied, like sugared candy.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's getting me are like sugary drinks.
Yeah.
So when I was preparing for it, it didn't occur to me that like lemonade had processed sugars in it.
Yeah.
Like it was just my thinking was okay, I'll stop drinking like Coke and Pepsi and I'll start
Mm-hmm.
drinking like a lemonade instead
Yeah.
or like a sweet tea instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like 3 days before it was time to go. I was like, oh, I can't have either of those.
Oh God.
Uh-oh. That's going to be very inconvenient. Um, yeah, so now I found a spiced tea
Mm.
with cinnamon, clove, and cardamom pods
Oh,
in it.
nice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's a really good tea.
Uh-huh.
So that's replaced like all of my sugary drinks. And then fruit, mostly in smoothie form, but
Mm-hmm.
occasionally I'll eat an orange. That's all of my sugar. And other than that, yeah, it's like whole organic foods.
That is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't. It's not like a weight loss diet,
Mm-hmm.
but I do feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that was happening before, I was getting a lot of gas and bloating
Okay.
because I'm getting old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, all that's gone.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So, well, I guess we'll keep doing updates. It's a 30-day thing. I'm only doing
Okay.
it for 1 month,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm gonna reintegrate foods that I like.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have it like on my calendar to
Mm-hmm.
order a pizza. So,
Nice. Pizzas have vegetables. It's fine.
yeah, pizza. According to Congress, pizza is a vegetable.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, that's how my country works. Pizza's just pizza's a vegetable now. Okay,
Well, the
cool.
humble pizza farmers of Wisconsin need our support.
Yep, yep. But I might make my own pizza
Ooh.
before then. Yeah, I might get like a whole grain, like milled flour,
Mm-hmm.
and like make a dough and
Nice.
make a pizza. Be a lot of work, but I really like pizza
Yeah.
and I miss it. I can't have cheese,
Mm.
so that's inconvenient. So
Can
I
you
don't
have
know
like
how I would make
vegan
a pizza.
cheeses? Because those are getting not quite as terrible as I remember them.
Yeah, maybe. I'd have to look at produce to make sure they're not processed in any
Oh yeah.
way and there are no additives in them.
Oh yeah, then no vegan cheese is out. It's
Ah,
massively processed. Because to get
yeah,
from like, cashew nuts to cheese, there is a process.
yeah. Well, so it was something that I discussed earlier. So like kettle chips,
Hmm.
right? Would you consider those like highly processed?
Well, they're just like potatoes cut up and put into oil, so I'd say no. That's like frying
Yeah,
an
right.
egg. So,
So like what process do you think that vegan cheese goes through?
if I remember
Hmm?
correctly from the recipes, it's basically like they soak the cashews in water and
Hmm.
then they like grind them up to make them smooth and then ferment them. So if you like if
Oh, yeah, I can't have fermented.
oh yeah, well,
Nothing fermented. It
oh
was great up until that point.
ah.
Yeah, I can't have fermented things.
They're against like
Like,
all fermentation. I thought like most like health things these days are all like about fermentation and all that stuff.
yeah, like
The
kombucha
probiotics and stuff.
and probiotics, yeah, are very big into. But that's not really the point of the diet, is it?
Oh, okay.
Like to yeah, it's not like a healthy eating for the rest of your life thing. It's like a
Uh-huh.
30-day, kind of like a detox thing.
Okay.
You're just trying to get chemicals and alcohols and greases and slimes out of the body. It
Hmm.
takes about a month for most of that stuff
Okay.
to clean out. Um, and you do that by only eating very clean foods
Hmm.
um, and only drinking like water or tea.
Okay. Also, I think like habit forming is something like 28 days or something like that. So a month is
Yeah,
probably also good just for, to reset your.
yeah. And then maybe I won't have the urges for. I used to eat a box, like a movie theater
Hmm.
sized box of Nerds every day.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, it's my favorite
Those are
candy
like
because it's
pure sugar, aren't they?
yeah, it's just sugar.
Uh
It's they're like nuggets of sugar with sugar on top.
huh.
And, and I love them.
Mm.
Um, So like maybe if I don't get the urges for that candy anymore, that would be healthy for me. I was eating quite a lot of sugar.
Yeah. But you also were
Now
like
that I,
working as a gardener, so you were working a lot. So that's
hmm
lifestyle is a thing.
yeah, yeah. The that gardening business
Hmm.
was very good for me for a lot of reasons.
Hmm.
Physical activity, not the least of which being outside in 100-degree heat.
Oh wow.
Definitely, that was very good because you sweat all the time.
Hmm.
So no matter what you're eating, you're gonna lose weight.
Yeah.
That's great.
And probably very soft skin.
Yeah. No, your skin's
Hmm.
very supple until you stop, and now my hands are like quite leathery.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed it like when I'm putting on lotion. I'm like,
Hmm.
wow, my hands are like rough and farmer status. But like that's not the
Well,
case
the
in the middle of this season.
Henry
It's
Williamson, the author of Charcoal the Otter, will probably be really like into the aesthetics of your hands.
yeah, really want to take pictures of my hands, which is why I'm glad I stopped. I'm gonna go get a manicure because you even mentioned that. Oh,
Oh no, it's already
oh,
6:30. Okay, I'm gonna have to run. I'm
oh
gonna.
no.
Well, it was lovely talking to you. I really enjoyed our
Yeah, it's been a
detour
pleasure.
into football. And
Yeah, we'll talk to you next time to continue our discussion on fascism.
exactly wonderful. Kind of looking forward to it. So
Goodbye.
goodbye.